here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings and salutations and welcome to a very special episode of Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, I know you're probably sitting back as your Shedadamus comes out of the blocks like Usain Bolt. And not Usain Bolt that played for the Central Coast Mariners. Not that Usain Bolt. I'm talking about Jamaica's finest. All right, let's just cut to the chase of what I'm trying to say. Shedheads, welcome to episode 150 of Outside the Sheds. That's right. If any of you have been here with me through this entire journey, and I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of the history of Outside the Sheds. It all kind of started when COVID hit, and I just out of the blue, the first match back from COVID was the Tigers. Was it Cowboys? I'm having a hard time figuring out who the Tigers were playing. But Andrew Voss was on the call, and Vossi asked the world, let me know where you're watching this game from. And I just, out of the blue, just sent a text to Vossi and said, Corey from Austin, Texas. And Vossi read it on the game. Corey from Austin, Texas is watching. And I can't say that was the number one catalyst, because the number one catalyst is my incredibly supportive, loving Mrs. Shedadamus, who, Shedheads, let me just give a quick, I'm going off the exit ramp really quick. Let me just give a shout out to my lovely, lovely wife who's getting ready to have her birthday tomorrow. We are going to a safari type resort. I don't know what we're in store for, but there's vicious rumor that I'm going to be swimming with otters in the next 2 days. But I want to thank you to my beautiful wife. Happy birthday to her. But she is maybe my biggest catalyst of why Outside the Sheds kind of came to fruition. But that moment that Vossi gave me a shout out and said that, it kind of gave me that feeling that I tell you guys all the time on this show, that rugby league, NRL, Super League, whatever you want to say, I'm going to say the cult of rugby league is a cult, is not MAGA cult, but is a cult and a clan. I'm just saying we're a group, we're a family. And I experienced that, and that's why I tell you guys time and time again, if you get a chance to go to Vegas for the kickoff of the season, no matter what team you're there to support, heck, wear your freaking Castleford Tigers jersey for all I care. But you'll see what I'm talking about. Of all the times I've been there, and this is my third season of going there, my third year going to Vegas, I have not seen one type of altercation between fan bases while I was there. All right? And the crazy thing is, this is taking place in a Raiders stadium where altercations are par for the course. We're talking about a place that pirates live. Raiders Stadium, the Death Star. But that's the beauty of the whole thing. And I think when Vossi kind of said that shout out to me, it just kind of showed me what I just said to you, that we're all together in this. The love, the passion we have for the game, it just kind of comes out of our pores. And I don't know if there's any other sport, because you guys all know I'm a huge New Jersey Devils fan in the NHL. But I can't say that you really get that type of brotherhood, sisterhood, familia, family type of feeling being hockey fans or college football fans. Because the next thing they ask you is, who do you support? And that'll really determine how people treat you. And that's, like I said, when you're walking across that bridge to the Death Star and everybody's in their different, it's like a pageant, a parade of rugby league. And again, another one of the reasons I've fallen in love with the game. And because I was falling in love with the game and we were in COVID and I didn't want to sit and drink Johnny Walker Black nonstop every day, I had to find some way to kind of get my outlet. And I said, what better way to get my voice out there, no matter if you think it's incredible and I think it's pearly, but that's something else, But it just kind of came to me, why not just do this? And like I said, the support that I've had from Mrs. Shedadamus all the way through this has been something really, really special. And she's kind of kept me going at times. And you guys know, if you've been with me this entire journey of the 150, I actually took a year off. I know COVID did crazy things to all of us, and I can't say that I fell out of love with the game. I just needed a year to just watch the game and process the game without coming back to you every week and just kind of giving you a breakdown of my feelings and thoughts, because I just needed that. I just needed that. So there is that little hiccup in the entire time that I've done Outside the Sheds, where I took a year off. But to do 150 episodes, it's something I'm very, very proud of. And I'm very, very proud of whoever is listening to this. And I have some loyal Shedheads out there. I've got a lovely, famous Shedhead that lives in the state of Illinois that's a huge supporter of Outside the Sheds. I've got Willow down in the nation's capital, who is a huge supporter and probably gives me more respect than almost I deserve, almost like I've been in the game for 60 years. And I love that guy, and I hope you're healing up, Willow. And I've got some loyal fans in Ireland, and had a guy that follows me nonstop in Russia, which I would have never thought that I'd have somebody in Russia. I don't know, maybe he could be FSB, but yeah, who cares? Let's navigate through the FSB a little bit. But it's a big moment, big time in Outside the Sheds, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you for anybody who is still listening and who's a part of this tribe, because we are a tribe in Outside the Sheds, and I've always said this show is your show, just like it's my show. So don't ever hesitate to send me out a message. I've been really bad at messages lately, so forgive me, Shedheads. I promise you I'm going to get back to all of you. But it's just kind of my thing, and who would have ever thought that this would have turned to me being on with Vasi and being on the Matty John show with Matty and Fletch and Heine and Gordy, because that's when Gordy used to be on the show, and my friendship with Gordon Tallis now. It's just it's kind of it's crazy, and you just don't know. And Mrs. Shedadamus is very famous for always telling me this: you don't know unless you put yourself out there. Okay, she really doesn't sound like that, but she's right. You've got to just put yourself out there. And that whole avenue opened up when I met the boys from the Matty John show and Gordy and started my friendship with Gordy, because I just saw him sitting up there in a bar in Vegas that first year, and I just wasn't going to say anything. And there's my lovely wife who kind of prodded me, and the rest is history, big money, big revenue, Matty. So, welcome. I'm happy that you're still here. I'm happy that we're building this thing out too, and it blows me away as we continue to grow this podcast. And so enough of my rambling about that. But welcome to 150. We're gonna go strong in this episode, like we've gone strong with the other 149 before it. So let's kick it off. First off, again, I've got to do it. 6 of 8 with picks again this last week. I'm 25 of 38 for the season. That's not bad. I think that's like 67% maybe, I'm thinking off the top of my head. So I'm kind of happy. I'm flowing. The end of last season was a little brutal, but, it's always a little brutal sometimes in this game. But we're doing well. But round 5, man, this Easter weekend of games was again why we love this game so much. We had so much that we had to unpack, so much that we just were like, I'm trying to process, this is happening. And it just, again, I said this on the first podcast, the first episode of this season. I said, this is going to be a special year. This is going to be a special year. And some of you laughed at me when I said the Tigers were my Smokey and we're going to finish in the top 8. Well, I'm not. There you go. There's your Shedda. But Easter just really, really just again put the stamp down of how incredible this season is going, and really in a lot of the sports that I've been watching lately, college baseball. I'm a huge college baseball fan. You guys know that. Sometimes I go into the basement. I go on my vacation, halfway through the NRL season to go up to the College World Series, something I've done for a lot of years. Let's just say that since 1980. My family first went there. I was a little kid with a lot of big hair on top of my head. But the college baseball season is going well. But this NRL season is going to be something we're always going to remember. 2026 is going to go down to that. But we can't go forward until we take care of now. So let's go into round 5. And again, like I said, this just kind of punctuated everything. The beginning of the Kieran Foran era at Manly kicks off with the Seagulls 52, Dolphins 18. And I'm going to say it, in a WTF moment of the round, who saw that coming? A lot of people were saying, boy, I think this is going to be an ugly match to watch. Well, it was an ugly match to watch if you were a member of Team Flipper, which means the Dolphins, which means which means this isn't good for one of the smartest animals in the aquatic kingdom. Bad. Very, very bad. I've told you time and time again on this show, I'm a huge fan of Christian Wolf, but something's off. Something's off up in Red Cliff. Something is off up with the Dolphins. The defensive strategy is not working. That cohesion that Jermaine Asako and Cody Nikorima had has just not seemed to flow like it did. I know everybody loves, the mustache Herbie Farnsworth, but Jake Avarillo, even the hammer has still looked good, but just not been full hammer, right? And they got trounced. And we're going to talk about this a little bit in the deeper dive. We're going to do something a little bit different this time, but wow. Manly has some questions to answer because where has this been all the way through the beginning of this season? Like I said, we're going to talk about it, but Foz, congratulations on victory number 1. Can somebody tell me, was Foz the first coach in the history of the NRL that came to the stadium and coached in shorts, and not just a nice pair of dress shorts, but a pair of training shorts? Get him, Foz. That's all I can say. Kieran Foran doing it his way. But congrats on that first victory. Rabbitohs 32, Bulldogs 24. A match, I will say, of all the matches that I watched during the season that gets replayed always at a certain moment, whenever you talk about the pinnacle of the West Tigers, you always see the Benji flip pass to Patty Richards. It was good to see Patty Richards on 100% footy this week, and it was great talking to him in Vegas last year. Like I said, legend, Shedheads, straight legend. But what I'm trying to say with that West Tigers thing is, whenever you talk Easter Friday, we're getting to Easter Monday, Easter Friday, bunnies, dogs, we always see Jimmy Graham losing his mind with Clem, and refs getting pounded with bottles as the kennel tried to eat, if you know what I mean. You see that match every year, and it just goes down in infamy. Listen, that was more hair on Josh Reynolds' head than I've seen for, well, maybe not anymore, if you know what I mean. Come on, Turkey. But no, it is a match that just is famous, and it's kind of cool because it's one of those matches I'll always remember. I was a guest in, what was that, 14? I think I was like 4 years into just really breaking down and just loving the game and whatever. And I still remember that match like it was yesterday. It was, man, they've had some epic tilts on Easter Friday, and we got another one. And after a hiccup of last season, unfortunately for the kennel and the boys from Belmore, this has been a Rabbitohs one-sided space for quite a bit of time, and it kind of lived up to that again. And the saddest part about this is we're starting to do something with the dogs that I would think that they wouldn't like, because instead of talking about their football, we're starting to talk more and more and more again of why this just isn't clicking. And this is the second year in a row we're getting, why is this not clicking? What is making this whole thing not run efficiently? Last year was Toby Sexton and Reed Monty. it was that. And now again, and it all stemmed. And let's not, hey, you can say what you want to about Lachlan Galvin, but all of this drama at the Bulldogs has happened since Lachlan Galvin's gotten there. Don't forget, and look at last year before he got there, the Bulldogs were flying. They were unstoppable. They were one of the fastest teams out of the blocks last year. And then Gus and the powers that be thought it would be great to poach Lachlan Galvin from the Tigers. And since that time, it's like they've got a bunch of pieces and they don't know where to fit them. And then they get rid of a few pieces and then they try to think that that's going to fit. And it just seems all of this is done to try to make the Golden Boy, Lachlan Galvin, fit the way that they want him to fit, or the way they see him fitting. And after a while, you have to sit back and you have to ask yourself the question, is it worth that? Now, a lot of people think Lachlan Galvin's going to be an incredible player, and I can't tell you one way or the other. I don't think he's a 7 by any means. He's a 6 for sure. But why the dysfunction that continues to happen and the uncohesiveness that this team continues to exude week in and week out, and now they're really in trouble because their Captain America, their Captain Australia, whatever you want to call him, but Crichton is out. And he is, to me, everything that holds this team together. He is their captain. He's their leader. They follow him. They don't get out of Vegas with that victory if it wasn't for him. So there is some worrying signs on the horizon, and it's not going to get any easier for the Dogs because they've got the revenge tour coming up in round 6 because the Penrith Panthers don't want to leave an imprint on Cameron Ciraldo's chest and show him, yeah, don't forget where you came from. That is coming. That is really coming. So, again, good victory for the Rabbitohs. They just seem to win these games. I can't say that they've been incredibly impressive, but I don't think that old Clint Eastwood, Wayne Bennett's going to complain too much. Even though they probably haven't been firing on all cylinders, they're getting the chocolates. They're getting the victories. They beat the Tigers. Not many teams have beaten them. Even though the Tigers outplayed them, they still got the victory. So, big victory again, and really kind of expected how that series has been going on recently. Well, speaking of who the Dogs play next, Panthers 50, Storm 10, in Liam Martin's 150th game. Man, the revenge tour put it in 5th gear, didn't it? That was utterly epic. That's all you can say. Putting a 50 spot on Team Bellyache, that's the first time that's happened since 2003, which you guys have probably heard time and time again. Wow. And if they would have had another 5 minutes on the clock, they probably could have hit 60. That is what this team is. I will tell you, I have been, again, watching this game since 2010 religiously, week in and week out. I would have never thought that I would have seen a Melbourne Storm team get a 50 spot put on them. You just unheard of, right? And we did. And Andrew Johns even said that how Penrith is playing right now, this is the greatest start to a season in the history of the game. And this man's an immortal. I'm not going to try to go toe-to-toe or even put my comprehension of the game up against Joey Johns. Andrew Johns says that, you better listen. And I will say this right now, Shedheads, I watched that game, and I was blown away. That team is on another level right now. And the NRL better be worried. And that's every team better be worried. Because if they stay healthy this year, they're not going to let up. I saw a stat that I didn't know. Almost every key player's contract is up in November. So there's going to be some major decision-making coming up for the Penrith Panthers. But I think this team is so smart. These players are so smart. They know this. And I don't want to say this is their last ride, but Scotty Sorensen's leaving. So for sure, this Penrith team is not going to be exactly the same next year. But that's next year. And this Penrith team that's together right now is one of the first times a Penrith team has been this cohesive without losing a major component in part. And that's what we're dealing with. That is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a angry Panther squad that wants retribution and wants to cause pain to everybody else because they didn't get that trophy last year. And they're not going to let up. So, huge victory. We're going to talk about the Storm, too, a little bit because there are some worrying signs there. But, huge victory for the Panthers. Cowboys 32, Dragons 0. Another pitiful performance by St. George. Getting very, very sad, getting a little bit shaky. Again, we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive about the Dragons right now. We're going to talk about them in a second. I'm not even going to waste time right now. But the Cows are playing some really incredible footy right now. And what better time for them to be really revving into form than the Queensland Derby that's coming up this Friday night. But Purdue, Jackson Purdue gets a double, parlays that into a new contract with the Cows, so they get their man. I said I'm a big fan of Todd Payton. I've said that time and time again. He's finally got this team, even though I still don't understand how they keep talking about possibly getting rid of Scotty Drinkwater. That's insanity to me. But he's got this team humming finally. And they've gone through some quicksand to get where they're at right now, but they're there. And they are going to continue to perform. So great victory for the Cowboys. And like I said, really setting them up for that Queensland Derby. Oh, and speaking of the devil, Broncos 26, Titans 12. I don't know. Who knows? Another big, huge victory and another big rivalry that I think people want to be a lot bigger currently than it is, because the Broncos have been dominating this rivalry or this competition for a little while against the Titans, and until people stop seeing Titans as a little cousin, the Broncos are going to continue to roll over them. But again, another victory for this club. That makes it 3 on a trot for Madge's boys. But this one, a lasting effect. Because the Golden Boy, Reece Walsh, fractured in his face. 2 huge losses. Reece Walsh's injury, which is his second facial fracture, which is crazy. And then Benny Hunt going down. And the thing that blew me away about the Ben Hunt situation, he played that whole game. And so when I saw him come up on the injury report and for knee out 6 to 8 weeks, I just didn't pay attention enough or see the ice pack. And I now saw in the Sheds that he had ice on his knee between the first and second half. But 6 to 8 weeks, Benny Hunt is a huge factor. Walsh, Hunt, they're saying Adam Reynolds is on the team list for this week, but people are laughing when they say Adam Reynolds will not be out on the field this week. So that puts a lot in Ezra Mann's lap this weekend. And then there's talk that he's not 100% healthy either. So you gotta be tipping towards the Cows right now, and we're not doing our picks yet. Calm down. But the Broncos get another victory, and the Titans are in that game if that horrible forward pass call isn't made. What an atrocious call made by that touchy that changed the entire momentum of that game. That's why I'm not a coach, Shedheads, because I could not probably hold it together at the press conference and not just go nuclear over a moment like that. And a lot of coaches and people will say, well, nothing comes down to just moments. Well, that's crazy, because moments do change outcomes in games. And especially calls when you take points off the board, which flip around to be points on the board for the other team in a matter of moments, Yeah, that was a huge moment in that game. And unfortunately for the Titans, that is what this season has been. They just are not getting the breaks that they need when they need them. And it just continues for them right now. But big but costly victory for the Broncos. Sharks 36, Warriors 22. Down an early try, the boys from the depths came up. Let me just put it that way, because the Sharks just stormed back, getting the victory. Bubba Kennedy getting 2 tries to get them back in the flow, get them back moving. Man, and Kale Ero, man, that dude, whoo, he put on a first half performance too for the Sharks, where he pretty much anything he touched or tried worked, and he looked like a freak out there. He looked like a man amongst boys. And there's not a lot of small people on the Waz, if you know what I mean. But the performance he put in that first half, just spearheaded. It was good to see Nico Hines running the ball a little bit. It almost seems like Nico's starting to round into form, almost like he kind of knows where his place is on this team, what he needs to do. And it's starting to work. You know, you heard me a few weeks ago, my pick, that this team is going to be there late in the season. That has not changed. But that was a big victory, because as impressive as it was that the Sharkies got the victory, the Waz just looked disjointed. Since Metcalf has come back in the halves, Tanner Boyd hasn't played the same. It's going to be interesting to see if that all changes now that Metcalf is out again with that hamstring injury, and let's see if Tanner Boyd gets more comfortable now being the dominant playmaker again, and if they can get back in that flow and the groove again. But they just have not looked the same. They've looked disjointed. The defense hasn't been the same, and the Sharks took full advantage of that. Big victory to get Cronulla back going in the right direction. Knights 32, Raiders 12. They finally do it. The Knights breaking that home stand hoodoo and stop it at 7 games to get back in the win column. And man, wasn't that great to see. We're going to talk about that on that Easter breakdown that we do, but McDonald Jones Stadium is rocking. The boys and the boys and the girls in the Hunter were having a good time. And it was great to see. This team it's special. And I said, watching the smiles that continue to come on Dom Young's face, Team Fletcher and Fletcher, these two guys are just Newcastle. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Newcastle is heading in the right direction a lot quicker than anybody thought they were going to, and it's fun to watch. But then you look on the other side of the coin, and Ricky's Raiders just look disjointed. They do not look right. This is the minor premiers from last season, and as much as everything went well for them last year, it is totally flipped on a dime this year. They are struggling in every category. They don't look confident. They're making tons and tons of errors. And I'm not going to put it on that new Ethan combination, because I don't think it's that whatsoever. They just don't seem right. And I'm starting to see in press conferences that Ricky is starting to get a little frustrated. This team hasn't changed a lot, even though I know a lot of people say, Fogarty not being there and having that senior leadership in the halves might be a lot. But Ethan Sanders has not played bad at all. But they need to make a huge change, and they need a big win to kind of get this ship righted, and for this team to start getting that confidence and that exuberance back that we saw all of last year. But Knights, again, third on the ladder. Impressive stuff. Big victory. And finally, the Easter Monday showdown. The match that lived up to all expectation. The Eels, the Tigers, Corey versus Dom. No, I'm joking. It was everything, and we got a Monday Classic. Even with some questionable calls that kind of went 2 different ways. I'm surprised Mitchell Moses still has any teeth from getting touched on the chin a little bit that almost cost the match for the Tigers. And then the high shot that also got, maybe that was a makeup call. Who knows? But, man, we got some fun footy all the way through that. I I really enjoyed that game all the way around. Both teams really left it all out there. It was fascinating to see towards the end just how the Eels were just dropping like flies, like injury-wise, and Mitch Moses' groin, just everything. But they kept battling. They stayed, and it almost looked like Mitch had it slotted for Golden Point, and the ball broke to the right like somebody blew on it. And then Jock Madden, again, 2 weeks in a row, playing really good games. Now, Shedheads, let's take a deep breath, though. If you're thinking that Jock Madden should be in the halves over Dewey or Jerome Luai, you better put that thing down. Put down the bottle, put down whatever you have in your hand that's causing your mind to do and have your mind play tricks on you, right? Whatever it is, stop it. Because Dewey and Luai are for sure the halves combination the Tigers need. But what I would do, personally myself, I've got Jock Madden in the 14 jersey going forward. Because I think what you could do is you can slot Jock Madden in at different times and maybe even occasionally push Dewey out a little bit to be a third half or kind of playing a little bit lock, like a little bit of a lock position or something like that. But I would have Jock Madden as part of my side. He would definitely be my 14. But I feel really good. I'm saying he's been through a lot with the loss in his family last week, and he's just played good footy. And I think that what you get, he didn't play one game of first grade last year, but being around that Brisbane Broncos culture and getting a ring, he's brought that back to the Tigers. And I think you can see how he's been playing his footy with the confidence that he has. He feels like he's back home. He knows that he can contribute. And the thing that Benji has always been good at is he's a half, right? One of the greatest halves in the history of the game. And he knows what he wants out of his halves. He knows what he has with his halves. And he's able to convey that to these guys to get the best out of them. So it's good to see this. The Tigers, number 2 on the ladder. We're going to be ready to talk about them right in a second. Now, coming out of the Easter round, I'm telling you, we came with 5, to me, big talking points. And these are things that really, really stuck with me as I went through this incredible week. My number 1 was, is the performance by Manly have to do more with Kieran Foran, Foz, or just getting rid of Anthony Seibold? And that's a true question. Because when you look at what just happened, Foz changed the entire approach of Manly. He had the bigs continue to just go forward, and he took the brakes off Jake Trbojevic and Alakwatu. I'm saying Jake had 8 runs for 81 meters, which he'd been having 2 and 3 up to this point. Like, everybody was calling Jake Trbojevic into question if he should just hang it up and was his game just over with. But I think he had 47 tackles, too. So it was a true Jake performance that we got that we haven't seen for a while under Seibold. And I know that Jake went down with that head knock last year and they kind of rested him. But then you look at Alakwatu, 24 runs, 272 running meters, 2 line breaks, 1 line break assist, and two try assists, 8 tackle breaks, and 1 try. When you look at those numbers right there, where was that under Seibold? And what Olakwatu said was Kieran Foran gave him the green light to just play his footy, play his game, play what he saw in front of him. And that was totally opposite that we got under the Seibold era. There was no cohesion with the backs. It was almost like he had them playing a style of footy that the team did not want to play. And sometimes what happens is these coaches, I don't want to say Siebes lost the room, but maybe he lost the players to see the vision that he had of what he thought they should do and how they should play. And if the coach and the player are not on the same page with the same vision, that's what you get. You get a team that kind of stops playing for their coach, even though I think deep down they don't know they stopped playing for him. But yeah, besides a few big plays by Saab and Turbo, that was it. That was the most explosion you saw. And it was like little hints of magic dust and then back to nothing. So that was really crazy for me because I did not see that. I did not see Manly just thumping the Finns. I did not. But I will tell you, I'm really excited to see Foz and the boys go up against Flanno's team that's going to be totally desperate. So you've got one team in Manly that wants to prove that was just not just a moment in time where they were like, yeah, this is how we can play, but we're not going to do it going forward. And a Dragons team that has to try to flip it. A Dragons team that it's now or never. And when those two types of, I guess, teams at those type of junctures come head-to-head, we could get something special. I think the big thing is if you see a Dragons team that really shows that they want to be out there, or a Dragons team that really is kind of taking a knee, almost like what we saw Manly towards the end of Seabold's tenure there. Which team are we going to get this weekend? Number 2, after blowing the doors off the Storm, who can stop the Penrith Panthers? Well, that's a great question. Well, it better be a great question because I'm asking it. And what's to me the answer to this one, the only team to me that can stop Penrith is Penrith. That's it. And when I say that, they have been the informed team in this competition, which we know, right? They seem to me like they are the team that understand and have adapted to the new rules, the new quicker style of play, and then not and embracing that, but also not sacrificing their defensive prowess at the same time. And that is everything. Because we've had some teams that have been incredibly offensive teams, but then don't know how to tackle, right? So when you get that, you kind of ask yourself that question, okay, well, all right, that's the case. So for me, the only thing that's going to stop Penrith and beat Penrith is if they get a freak injury in a game, or if they have a match where they just have a calamity of errors, where you hear, one of those games where you hear commentators go, this just is not Penrith today. And to me, the only way that happens is if they lose focus. And the one thing Penrith has shown us right now, that's the last thing they're going to do is lose focus. So I find it very, very hard to believe that they're going to have a match. I guess maybe if there's a very rainy, just horrible, weather conditions game where freak things can happen maybe. But they've proven time and time again they can play in the wet. They're just a solid, solid team. Now, besides me saying the only team that can beat Penrith is Penrith, there is one little smoky that's sitting out there. And stay with me for a second. That team to me that could be that team, round 8, circle it on your calendar, when the Penrith Panthers go up to McDonald Jones Stadium and take on the Knights. Because that to me, I think when I look on paper, when I was looking at the injury report, is the week that I think Dylan Brown is planning to come back. And that stadium will be rocking. Dylan Brown will be in the side. And I think we could see some magic from the Knights. That is, when I look at the day, the game, the round, where they really might have to be in a real tussle. But I'll say this. If Penrith goes up to the Hunter and just takes Newcastle behind the woodshed and pulls them apart, yeah, another moment on the revenge tour that the rest of the league starts to shake and quiver. But yeah, besides that, I think the only team that beats Penrith is Penrith. Number 3, who had the Tigers and Knights in round 6 being second and third on the ladder? Yeah, okay. If you're looking at me right now saying it was you, you're a liar. And please, don't leave me any comments at anything because I don't trust you. Because no one did. It it has been the feel-good story of 2026, these two clubs right now. And you have to feel good for these fan bases. These two fan bases have just been taking it on the chin for so long. I think the last time the Tigers were in the finals, Homer made his way home in the Odyssey. I think that was the last time that Tigers team played well, was because I think Homer was in attendance. Yeah, that's right. That's how long it's been. The Odyssey. It's been a very long time since the West Tigers have been in the finals, right? And that's the thing. That's why there's this wave that's starting to come from Tigers fans, and there's a wave that's starting to come from Newcastle fans. And a lot of this all comes down to these two coaching staffs and what they've done. Benji Marshall, some people have called it Benji Ball. He hates it because he says he's not even on the field, but he is the mastermind behind this. So Benji might have to just take this for a little bit. But he's set down a standard that the West Tigers have not had for a very, very long time. I would say the last time they had something like this was Tim Sheen's. But Tim Sheen sometimes did not make his teams really stay focused on the defensive side of the ball at times, right? They were very offensively driven, but they slacked off a little bit when it came to the defensive side of the ball. Benji's still having that flair with the Tigers and that attacking mentality, but then he's remembering when he was coached by Wayne Bennett how important defense was. And Wayne changed Benji's entire frame of the way that he played the game and thought about the game towards the back end of his career, because there's things he couldn't do anymore. So he learned and he listened a lot to Wayne. And that is, to me, what is now coming in with the standard being set and the way this team is also playing defense. Because they are, back in the day, let's not even talk about how bad of goal line defense this team used to have. They are now flocking to the ball. They're gang tackling. They are in the fight and in the grind. And that has changed the entire perception of what it means to take on the West Tigers. For the Knights, what did we just talk about last week, Shedheads? We talked about how Justin Holbrook has come in there and given the Knights a blue-collar mentality on how to take care of what they are, what their entity is, to embrace what the Hunter is, and to be a part or a conduit of that fan base. And that's what they have become. Like, this team, what they're doing without Pung and Brown on the field, and I don't want to say fans have forgotten about those two guys, but the brand of footy that this team is playing, and even remember that Big Sharpie in the halves is playing with a bad knee. So he's even not 100%, and they're still getting performance after performance after performance. Told you about Dom Young time and time again. They're playing a brand of football that they're excited and happy about. And that, to me, is what that mentality and mindset change is what has shifted Newcastle into, right at this current time, a top 4 club. It's belief. It's mentality and belief. So Justin Holbrook, you see the smile on his face when he's around his team because he knows that he's tapped into that. And he's got a team that's buying into it. And I've always said that he was a good coach. I thought he got a bad run with the Titans. But he really is back where he should be at Newcastle. And he's getting that team to do what they need to do. And that's, to me, why this game that's closing out round 6 between the Tigers and the Knights is going to be much watch TV for sure. But I have it as my match of the round coming up for round 6, my pick. So, wow. I am so excited for this game because I just don't know what we're going to do. But one thing I do know is neither one of these teams is going to give up. And each one of them are going to have a point to prove. It's going to be some epic footy at Campbelltown. Number 4, will the Trell ever stop making boneheaded decisions that could cost his team? I'm going to take a deep breath before I start this one, but I'm going to say this right now. I have always been a big fan of Latrell Mitchell. I've always stood up for Latrell Mitchell. But what I watched on Easter Friday when Latrell Mitchell took out Connor Tracy. When Connor Tracy was giving himself up and was getting ready to get the ball in the end line, and Latrell just laid into him. Connor Tracy is lucky that he didn't get injured. Connor Tracy is lucky that he is the size that he is and that he is the type of player that he is, meaning that he's very, very flexible. He's very athletic in that way. And playing that fullback position, you get your body contorted and hit and all that type of stuff. Because that could have been a really serious injury. And Connor Tracy might have really lost some time. But I want to go back to Latrell, because let's say Latrell even gets put on report. Because of his history, he's probably getting some type of a suspension, right? And he doesn't need to be doing that. I don't understand why he shuts off at certain moments. And unfortunately, I go back to that moment when he broke Joey Manu's face. And I didn't get that. The crazy thing about that, it was cheap, it was brutal, and Joey Manu was his friend, and Latrell still, made that type of shot on him. It's almost like he just sees red, and it doesn't matter who it is, it doesn't matter where the player is at, it doesn't matter of what's going on in the game. He puts a code red, he can't see, the red miss happens, and he makes a play. He does something that can really cost his team or even cost a player. I'm saying, look at Joey Manu, what that cost him with that play from Latrell. He was very, very fortunate to get off. He was very, very fortunate that the bunker didn't call down, because it was a play that I would have had no problem if they would have called something on Latrell. And it's curious to see going forward, because the Bunnies need Latrell to be playing for them to live up and to accomplish the things that they really want to accomplish this season. But Latrell has got to take this part of his game and flush it. Flush it. Because it will cost them. And it could cost him big time too. So he's too good of a player to do this type of stuff. And I just hope, and I'm getting worried because he's now been playing long enough to me where these type of moments should not be in his game anymore. But again, we saw it once again, him making that decision. And the only thing you can tell is Latrell, you got to do better. But I don't know. I'm hoping Wayne Bennett set him down and have a heart-to-heart with him about making those type of decisions. And I guess the other thing we should say is thank gosh Connor Tracy was all right. But, yeah, you got to do better, Latrell. Number 5, and this is the one to me that, I can't believe I'm even going to say it. Will the Storm do the unthinkable and lose 4 in a row? Shedheads, first off, I can't believe I'm talking and the Storm have lost 3 in a row under the Bellyache watch. 3 games in a row the Melbourne Storm have lost. It blows me away. And I don't care if you hate the Storm. I don't care if you love the Storm. Nobody would expect to see this team going through what they're going through right now. But I want you to think for a second. If you don't believe me, go back in the archives of the 149 episodes up to this point. A few weeks ago, after the Storm lost the grand final rematch, when they once again looked like they were in charge down in Melbourne, I said something. And I said something that is coming to pass right now. I said, Shedheads, this loss is going to stay with the Melbourne Storm. And the one thing they're going to have to concentrate on is not having this loss cost them 2, 3, or 4 matches. And it's come to pass. The hangover of that loss and losing the grand final when they had everything in control and having a revenge game and losing that to a side that had not won yet, it has taken and eroded the confidence away from the Melbourne Storm. Something that is unthinkable to think that we're even talking about right now, but they're not playing with confidence. During this skid, to me, Money Munster has not been money. Cameron Munster has not been the same player. I can't remember like any incredible time that he's just tried to take the game on himself. He's kind of been invisible on the field. And that tells me a lot. When Cameron Munster isn't doing those larrikin or freaking, off the cuff type of plays that kind of get this team going, they're not playing the same type of footy when those moments aren't happening. So that might have been the first, I don't know, sign things are not right. But in the last 3 rounds, the Storm have conceded 92 points. Let me say that one more time. In the last 3 rounds, the Melbourne Storm, Craig Bellamy's Melbourne Storm, have conceded 92 points. Again, something that is so not Melbourne Storm. And that's why Bellyache said in his press conference after it, if these players don't want to play, I will bring in new young players that do. That is some harsh words by Craig Bellamy, but they're true because he has a standard, kind of like what I was talking about with Benji, what he's trying to put in place with the Tigers. He has a standard that he needs to hold the Melbourne Storm to, and a vision of how he sees them playing footy. And they have not anywhere came close to living up to that right now. Now, the problem for the Storm this week is they've got the Waz coming to town. And you've got a New Zealand Warriors team that are coming off of 2 losses in a row themselves. A team that lost a match where they were up by 10 to the Tigers. And a team that just, they started strong against the Sharks and just kind of fell away. So they're going to be hungry. You know already what Storm and Waz matches look like. They're always fun matches. Unfortunately for the Waz, it's been very, very one-sided in this rivalry. Andy Roddick once said something about Roger Federer, what you think about the rivalry with Roger. And Andy Roddick said, point blank, he said, I've got to win one for there to be a rivalry, don't I? And it's kind of the case. The Storm have dominated the Waz in Melbourne. I am very one asterisk on this whole thing that I think could be a difference maker. Luke Metcalf. Metcalf comes back, and since Metcalf has come back, the halves cohesion that the Waz had, Tana Boyd running the show, kind of having breakout performances to start the first few rounds of this competition, has gone to the wayside. And I think what you have now is you have 2 players that can do impressive things, but they may not fit together. Because Tana Boyd has kind of gone to the back seat and let Luke Metcalf try to take over, even though he's still in the 7 and they've moved Metcalf to the 6. And it just hasn't worked. So with Metcalf going down with that hamstring injury, everything is back now on Tana Boyd's shoulders, and with Chanel Harris-Tavita now fitting back in the halves with him, I have a feeling that the Waz are going to kick back off. And the sad part about this for Luke Metcalf is Luke Metcalf had the world in the palm of his hand when he got injured last season. And you just wonder, with him going back down now again, has he lost his foothold in this club? Because if all of a sudden the Waz fire back up and Tana Boyd starts remembering how he played at the beginning of this season and they start looking their devastating best like they looked for a while, you wonder what that means for Luke Metcalf. Now, like I said, that was my asterisk. It is going to be very, very interesting to see if all of a sudden, with the threats that Craig Bellamy has had, if that makes the Storm kick back in, remember who they are, and get ready to attack the way that a lot of people think they can. And that is what we're going to have to see. Because if they don't, the Waz will beat them. And it will be 4 in a row, which, again, is going into unheard of territory for the Melbourne Storm. It is going to be a super cracker of a match to close out Super Saturday. Can't wait for this one because you got 2 teams that are desperate to get back in the win column, and it's going to be interesting to see what depths of depravity they're going to do to get there. That's right. I said it. Depths. So, great match on the horizon. Now, as we go into the 40-20 Shedheads, I don't hold ill will over anyone in the game. All right? There's some players or people that I maybe don't think as fondly of as others, but I don't, I don't have any type of ill will over anybody. I don't. I love the game. I know the sacrifices that coaches and players have to make for it. It's a tough sport. And like we all know, it just happened to, Anthony Seibold, sometimes this game comes with a cost. That's why, for me, the scenes that I saw last week out of the St. George Illawarra fans was so hard to watch. Because for me, upset fans are one thing. All right, we've all been not happy with our teams, right? But watching an entire stadium booing their team off the field at halftime and at the final siren, that's something else. I don't stand by that. I just told you at the beginning of this podcast, I'm a huge New Jersey Devils fan, right? The Devils moved to New Jersey in 1982, right? They didn't make the playoffs until the 88 season. So that was 6 years of atrocious hockey, right? Really bad hockey. Can I say that again? Really bad hockey. Really bad hockey. But even though I was a young kid, I never would think about booing my team. I just wouldn't. I can be upset. I can be frustrated. But I have not been in that position to, quote unquote, boo somebody who's put it all out on the line off the field when they're at home, and we should try to support them as best we possibly can, right? Because if you think that any professional team wants to lose and don't want to win, you're missing the point. They want to win. They want to win more than anything. And they don't really truthfully want to 100% win for us. They want to win for themselves. They want to win for the boys in that locker room with them. So I've never been a guy that's ever booed a team or somebody that I've booed bad people doing bad things, or teams that don't respect the game, but I don't boo when a team loses. Just can't do it. But do you have the right to do that? Yes, you do. But to me, what was even harder than watching the St. George fans booing the Red V as they left the field was seeing Shane Flanagan in that press conference. And it's going to stay with me because I've met Shane Flanagan. I met him when he was the coach of the Cronulla Sharks, and Flanno had a presence about him. He had a swagger. He had a little bit of moxie, but there was exuding confidence from him when I met him, right? He wasn't 100% happy because they had just lost to the Chooks when I met him, but he still had that. And when I met him, you could see that it was going through his mind what he was going to need to do to get his team where they needed to be, right? That was not the man that I saw at that press conference. It was a shell of the man that I saw at that press conference. Shane Flanagan's eyes looked like a hunted animal in the standpoint where he had no idea where to run. He had no idea what answers to give. He had no idea of even almost what to say, except he was sorry. And for a coach that's that prideful, and a coach that came in with such expectation with St. George of being able to get this team where they need to go, the word humbling I don't think is even strong enough. It was straight brutality of what he had to face. And I hated to see it. But coaching, you look at Madge McGuire. He just got in winning a grand final, and by round 3, people are calling for his head. You got to have thick skin. You've got to be able to I guess maybe remember, kind of like what I started this podcast off, remember that you're going to go home to Mrs. Shedadamus or to your significant other who doesn't care about your wins and losses and just loves you for who you are, right? But watching Flanno look like that was really tough to watch. It was really tough to watch. Now, the problem I think that they are having at St. George and what Flanno is going to have to do for the Dragons, I think is already starting. For one, Daniel Atkinson, to me, has never been a halfback. And I don't know why he got recruited and was told that he was going to come in to be the halfback of the squad when you can look at the young man and see that he's a total number 6, right? He's a total 5'8". And why would you force him into the halfback position when you have Kyle Flanagan, who's played 7 a lot of years and has the experience to play 7, right? So start Kyle in at the halfback position, and if Daniel Atkinson continues to excel or to show that he's got that type of a game, then maybe you make the transition to put Daniel Atkinson in the 7 if you think you need to. But you don't start a guy off who's really never been a halfback and move a guy that has been a halfback to the number 6 position. So I think that flip of in the halves, because we see that this week Flanno has said that Flanagan is going to go back to the 7 and Atkinson's going to go to the 6. I think that is going to be an ability for maybe some change in that offensive strike and maybe how they move the ball in the attack. The other one is with Clint Gutho being out this week. It allows Tyrell Sloan to be slotted back in the fullback position. I think that of all the things we're talking about is huge. Because no matter how much I like King Gutho and the Gutherino and all that type of stuff, he's lost a gear. And I really believe that Tyrell Sloan coming back into this side hungry, coming back into the side to be able to give pace and speed like I know that he can be game-changing. And I think it will be game-changing. So this is going to be really interesting because if Sloan goes the way that I think he's going to be, Gutho's not coming back from his injury and going to be back in the fullback position. He's going to be either at center or on the wing, which probably is where he needs to be right now if he has lost the type of pace like it looks like he's lost. So those are going to be some big calls, big things to watch this weekend against Manly. But unfortunately for Flanno and St. George, this might be a last-ditch effort. This might be that last call of the bugle to see if you can get reinforcements to refortify your line in a gigantic battle. Because if nobody answers that bugle call, or you know what I'm trying to say, these moves don't get the results that are needed, we might not have Shane Flanagan in the coaching box much longer for the St. George Dragons. So it's going to be interesting to see. I have to tell you truthfully, I would really like to see a smile back on Flanno's face because right now he's got dead eyes, and that's never a good sign for a coach. And finally, Shedheads, we go with the key outs because we've got some major injuries right now that could change the entire way we look at this competition because some teams could lose some major traction because that's how big these players are. You know about Reese Walsh. Everybody knows about Reese Walsh. But because of that facial fracture, he's out 4 to 6 weeks from the fullback position. This is a guy that pretty much took Brisbane right to the championship last year. And you're not going to have him on the back end. And I think that is a major blow for Brisbane's title defense. Because I think they had to finish top 4 if they are going to repeat. And you wonder if they don't get the results with Walsh going out. They're in 8th place right now. Will they lose contact with the top 4 because of these weeks when he's out? And let's continue to stay in the Brisbane camp because Benny Hunt, I told you about him with the knee that you didn't even know that the man was injured, but he is out even longer. He's out this 6 to 8 weeks with that knee. And with Reno not being able to stay healthy because he's just breaking down, and probably not even playing this week, like I said earlier, that is huge. Ben Hunt has kind of held this team together at times. I know he's been frustrated that he would like to start in the halves, but he's had that ability more than I think he probably expected because Reno just can't stay on the field. But that is huge for Madge McGuire. Madge is going to have to coach his little derriere off. Okay, I know Madge doesn't have a little derriere, but he's going to have to coach it off because those losses that they have, I think, could cost them big time. So, going to be very, very interesting to see how Brisbane handles these two key blows to their title defense. And then we got to go down to the kennel. We talked about Crichton coming out of that, Stephen Crichton coming out with that injury to that AC joint. And I don't know, Shedheads, if you ever had an AC joint injury. I had a really bad one. It's kind of funny I'm talking about this, but early into the relationship between Mrs. Shedadamus and myself, I had an injured AC joint. Had it for a while. And she actually gave me my first injection in that AC joint, her being a medical professional and all. And she gave me the shot. She shot me all up. Like you hear a lot of these coaches talk about that they're going to give him the needle. And it is insane what that does when you get. Now, it's not pleasant getting that needle injected into your AC joint, but it just changes the game, putting that in there, putting that stuff in there to get the pain, getting everything relaxed. So he's not even close to being needled right now. That's how bad it is right now. I think I heard Gus Gould on 100% Footy say that there's different levels, and this is a level 5. And Billy Slater said he's never even known of a level 5. And we know all the shoulder injuries that Billy Slater had back during the day. He's like, I didn't even know that thing existed, level 5. So, Critter being out, this could be a while. And with the disharmony that's going on in the kennel right now, that loss could really change their season. I know Bronson Sherry is going to fill into his spot. And no matter how much I like Bronson Sherry, he is no Stephen Crichton. He just isn't. Because Stephen Crichton is a captain. He's a leader. And these guys follow him. So those 3 blows for these two teams really could cost them, I hate to say this, could cost them their dreams for the 2026 season. So going to be interesting. Just follow those, Shedheads, because I think that could be some major talking points for the weeks to come. Now, as we go into round 6, the picks, we know we're hot. We're going to keep riding that wave. We're riding it. Point break. I'm Bodie right now. I'm riding the wave. We kick it off. Thursday night, the Revenge Tour. Panthers against the Bulldogs. I told you this is like Clubber Lang said back in the day. What's your prediction for the fight? Pain. Straight pain. And that's what I see. I see Mr. T screaming pain in the microphone. I guess he didn't scream it. He said it with menace. Pain is in the future of the Bulldogs. Because I think the Penrith Panthers are again make an example out of another team and going to kick off round 6 with a big victory over the Bulldogs. Friday, Sea Eagles versus Dragons. I've been going back and forth with this one. Is Sloan and the Habs shakeup going to be enough to dismantle and get the Dragons in the win column? Or does Foz continue to march his boys along and get his second scalp as a head coach? And this is a toss-up for me. I think it's going to be closer, but I'm going with the Sea Eagles, Shedheads. I'm going with the Sea Eagles. I'm going with them. I believe in Team Foz. I've got the Sea Eagles over the Dragons. And then to close out Friday night footy, Cowboys versus the Broncos, the Queensland Derby, and I am going Team Peyton all the way on this. I got the Cows on the trot, continuing their march up the ladder, and getting the victory over a Reese Walsh, Ben Hunt, and probably Reno-less Broncos club. Saturday, Raiders versus the Rabbitohs. This is my first sneaky pick. I'm taking the Raiders to upset the Rabbitohs and to get back in the win column. And I got Sticky's man waking up and figuring out they've got to go, and they've got to go now. Roosters versus the Sharks. This could be another one of those. It's not my pick of the round or my match of the round, but this is going to be a fun game. I'm taking the Sharkies. I think that this victory last week against the Waz is really going to get them motivated, get them flowing. I just see the Sharkies really taking this on and getting that victory. They're at home, so that's going to help. I got the Sharks over the Chooks. Warriors versus the Storm. Who's going to get off the snide? That's right, I'm going with the Waz. I do believe that Chanel Harris-DeVita being inserted back in that halves with Tanner Boyd is going to make all the difference in the world. We're going to see Tanner Boyd getting back to his freestyle play and the big men answering the call to kind of imposing their will. I do see that. And I got the Waz, and I can't believe I'm saying this. The Storm will lose their fourth in a row. Sunday, Titans versus the Eels. I just think with all the injuries that is going down with the Parramatta Eels, it's going to be tough for them to come out on top on this. I don't think we even know the severity of that groin injury for Mitch Moses. But I will say, I've got the Titans coming in and pulling a big upset, going down and getting the victory in Sydney. And finally, to me, I said it before, my match of the round going on in Campbelltown, Knights versus the Tigers. There has been talk, and I don't think I don't know, that Jerome Luai could be back this week. Not sure. But even if he's not, I've got the Tigers in this pivotal 2 versus 3 matchup, getting the victory over Holbrook's Knights. My gun of the round, you know what? I had to do it. Because the game this man has played, he has not been put on the shoulders over here at Outside the Sheds. Well, you know what? All right, I only drink skim milk, but the skim milk to me is Milky Jenkins, Thomas Jenkins, 2 tries, 260 running meters, 6 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks. Him and McLean are just lighting up the NRL. They're my favorite side to watch in the competition right now, and I think they're going to have another great performance against the Dogs this week. So Thomas Jenkins gets his first gun of the round on Outside the Sheds. So Shedheads, again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Episode 150. We've done a lot together. We've been together for a long time now, and we're not slowing down. I can't wait for our next party at 200. It's going to be a little bit, but we're going to do it. But until that time, I hope you had an incredible Easter. Just stay out of trouble. Don't get caught. It's crazy out there in this world. It's crazy. But you know what? That allows us each week to come back to Outside the Sheds and to experience and have a great time together. And until that time next week, I'm Corey Jackson. You've been listening to Outside the Sheds. 150 Shedheads. 150. Until next week. See ya.
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.